Now, grade coverage seems like it should be pretty straightforward, but for those of you who don't know how I work in the salon, I average about 20 to 30 appointments a day. Yes, you heard that right, 20 to 30 appointments. Now, the way I can do that is by, doing techniques that are really fast, efficient, and beautiful. People are obviously coming in if I'm getting that many appointments because they like the results. But for me, I'm not the type of hairdresser who, as much as I love my clients, I don't really like to spend 10 hours with any of them. So the technique that I'm going to show you guys today is going to be start to finish, single process grade coverage, and low lights all in 15 minutes. Yes, 15 minutes. So starting off first, we've got our beautiful mannequin head here, and you can see there's a lot of warmth. There's some gray in there. I would say she's probably about 30% gray. And what we're going to be doing is I want to go richer, deeper, like a nice, rich, dark chocolate brown. And so one of the things that keeps us really efficient is by using color that's already been pre-blended. So the extra, the So Color shades are already pre-blended for great coverage, and then they already have whatever you need to neutralize the tone. So I'm going to use the 504 NJ. Now the NJ is a neutral jade, and that's going to cancel out any unwanted red tones. And that's we have a lot of red tones with this mannequin head, so we're going to be wanting to neutralize a lot of that. And then with the low light formula, we are going to use color sync, because you don't need a permanent color for refreshing the ends. So we're going to use the So Color 4A. That's going to be our color sync. I'm sorry, we're going to go with color sync for that. So another thing that we do for fast application is I'm going to be using a tint bottle for the application. Now, I know a lot of us were trained, bowl and brush, but what I love about So Color is that the texture is very liquidy and creamy, and it applies really beautifully through a tint bottle. So for me, I find I can do a bowl and brush in about 15 minutes, but in the bottle, it takes me about 5. So if I can shave off 10 minutes and add 2 more simple processes in there during the day, or just at least get caught up through the day, it's definitely worth it for me. And so I'm gonna whisk it a little bit here, just get it nice and blended for us. And like I said, this was the Matrix So Color Extra Coverage, and it's going to be 504 NJ. And I'm going to be using the tint bottle to the application. So before we get started, let's section this off, because again, you want to have everything ready to go. If your assistant can section off for you before you even start, saves you another minute there to get it going. And you're going to section it off into 4 quadrants, and that way we're just going to move really, really fast. And typically I always start in the front, because you want to have the color sit a little bit extra, because most people, they're a little bit more gray usually, at the temples and up front. But also, it's also where the client sees it. So you want to make sure you're covering the areas where the client's really going to notice. So starting with the application of the tint bottle, you're going to see it just works really, really smoothly. And if you're not used to using one, it'll take you a minute to kind of like get the speed up. But for me, I find it super, super fast and effective. And again, the texture of the So Color makes it beautiful. It just glides through the hair, it spreads, and it gives you a really, really good coverage. And what I love also, again, because these are pre-blended, you don't really have to think. It's already kind of done for you. You don't have to complicate your formulations. So with this one, like I said, I did the 4NJ. But if you wanted to go a little bit lighter, there's the 506NV, and there's a 506NJ. Now the NV is made to neutralize unwanted yellow tones, where the 506NJ is going to be made for like unwanted red and orange tones. So, you can see I'm getting this on super, super quick. And it's really easy. You want to always, again, like I said, start up front where the gray is the most. And for the mid shafts, I usually use the exact same shade, except I don't put the neutral in. So because, a lot of my brunettes, they tend to have a lot of fading, we usually refresh the mids as well. And I typically keep some of the ends out, or a lot of the ends out, and then I'll gloss the ends with a much lighter shade, because I also find that the ends could be, super porous and they can grab the color really dark. So I did the 4NJ, the 504NJ for the gray coverage, and the low light is going to be 4A. And the reason I chose the 4A is we want to get that neutralizing, effect from it. And I think I saw a comment like, do you charge for the lowlights? Absolutely. We don't do anything for free. And for me, what I love about the way I'm going to be doing this lowlight application is that it's really fast. You're going to probably put it on in about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, again, depending on how quickly you work. So if you work fast, you're going to be getting it on really, really quickly and being able to move through your clients. So, and this is like a really easy add-on service. And honestly, like I said, most brunettes, by the time you see them in 6 weeks, they're going to have quite a bit of fading anyway. So doing this low light technique through the mid shafts is a good way to kind of refresh them in between. And in a way, you're almost giving them free highlights because you're kind of keeping the faded ends that they already have, and you're going to be able to kind of preserve those as their highlights. And what I do is, I'm going to be saving some bits as their lighter pieces, and you can put a gloss on over the whole thing after you rinse, and that'll give you that dimension. And it's because typically with most brunettes, I would say, they tend to fade to oranges and reds. So most of them, some of them want that, but most of them don't want. They want more of a chocolatey, dimensional kind of thing. And this is a great way to, kind of give them almost like a free highlight without the damage of the lightener. All right, so let's get through. We're getting through this real quick. So yeah, let's see what other comments have we got. Do you use Cream Developer? Yes, we're using this is the developer that comes with it. So I did 20 volume with the So Color, and that's going to be, typically you go with a 20 vol when somebody's got gray. And, there's 4 different, variations of these So Color neutrals. The ones that are probably you can use the most are the ones, the neutral jades and the neutral violets, because they're the ones that are going to neutralize the unwanted red tones. But there's also one that has the NWs. Now, a lot of people are scared of the NW because they think of they're adding extra warmth and it's going to turn their hair orange or brassy. But these are the ones you're going to want to use when somebody's really, really gray. Let's say you've got 80% coverage of those really old ladies that they really, really are so gray and their hair just starts turning into a weird dingy gray color. Then you're obviously not going to want to use extra ash. But what the NWs are going to do, it's going to give you essentially that foundational, underlying pigment that they're lacking. And so it's going to give their color more body, more of a rich color. It's going to shine more, and it's not going to be warm because they're lacking so much pigment. When you're at 80% gray, there's not much to really give you for any underlying pigment. So you, as the colorist, that's when we really need to go in. So, if you're just going to use regular subcolor, the option is, do half your formula neutral, half your formula gold. But why go with 2 different shades? Why decide to do all that when it's already been pre-blended for you? It makes your job so much easier. So we're almost done with this. So you see, we got this thing on super fast. That's what I love about a bottle application, is that you can get super, super quick application. All right, so we did our gray coverage. We got that on. Now we are going to start a timer for 35 minutes to let this start processing. You can go, if someone's really, really gray, really resistant, you can go up to 55 minutes. But honestly, with me, with So Color, I use this every day. And I feel like 35 minutes for the majority of my clients is really good. Okay, so now let's get started on our lowlights. So what we've done so far, we have our 4 quadrants. We're going to keep the hair still in the 4 quadrants. And what we're going to do next is, like I said, we're going to do the lowlights using a bottle again. And it's going to be Matrix Color Sync 4A. So we did 4NJ on the roots. So the lowlight formula is also going to be 4A. So I think I saw a comment, what's your time suggestion for stubborn gray? And then, you can push it up to 45 or 50 minutes. I tend to not go more than 45 typically. Most people, should get full coverage. If they're not covering, it might be your formula. If you're going too light on them, and they're naturally a brunette, as much as you think like it should cover, it's not gonna cover. Let me see, there's a comment, let me see this one. So they're saying, would you use Academy of Hair Design here? And is there any time you use this application using a bottle to do, I'm sorry, is there anything you would not use this application? So with this kind of application, this works really great for brunettes and redheads. I would say is ideal because, a lot of they're going to be tone on tone. Let me get some water. So for brunettes and redheads, because it's tone on tone, you are not going to be, really worrying about any spotting on the hair. But on a blonde, I would be a little bit more cautious. I think doing this application, it is a little bit more, kind of all over the place, but it's going to give you the potential to get spots on the blonde hair because the contrast typically on blondes is much higher. But for a brunette who's tone on tone, and we're going to be layering all this again with one more layer of gloss at the end, just to give it a beautiful, beautiful finish. So you'll get to see. So now we have the gray on. Now you're going to start from the bottom, working your way up. And what you're going to start doing is taking big sections. And what I do is you start by, kind of refreshing these mid shafts. And take it, you don't want to touch the color if it's gray already, so you just kind of connect it. And then just start picking out your low light pieces. Now people think they need to isolate everything in a foil, and if it was for a blonde, I would say yes, you probably need to do that. But for a brunette and redhead, it's tone on tone. So doing this like this, it almost acts like a little refresh. And the final gloss that we're gonna put on, you're gonna see is gonna end up really, really tying everything beautifully together. And you can see I'm going mostly all the way down, feathering it down, but I'm gonna leave the very, very ends out. Because again, naturally, hair lightens at the end, so you wanna preserve some of that lightness so that, you want it, and we're gonna be glossing that over at the very end. And what I'll use on that final gloss is probably gonna be like an 8 ash, so 8A is probably gonna be my go-to with Color Sync. And what that's gonna do is just gonna give, just a beautiful balance on those faded ends. And those are gonna be, let's see, do you worry about the bleeding to the drop sections? No, because we are tone on tone here. So you really aren't gonna really be noticing, even if there was a little bit of a bleeding, when it's tone on tone, you don't really have to worry too much about that kind of stuff. And trust me, I do this every single day. I have never really had a problem with spotting. Like I said, on a blonde, I would be really, really worried, but for brunettes and redheads, this is an absolutely great way to do, a refresh on their color if it's faded, or to do, this beautiful low light technique. So if it was a redhead that we were doing, let's say her formula was, half 8N, half 8 CG. So then for the low light formula, cut out the N. You don't need the neutral. You want to refresh the copper. You want to give them, more of that vibrancy. And so I would just do an 8 CG or 7 CG, whatever, whatever the base color is, do the same level for your low light. And like I said, we're leaving the ends out on purpose because those tend to be more porous. And I'm sure you guys have done a low light before, and you end up having like black inky ends, and like the clients do not want that. I don't want that. I want to keep the ends lighter, and that's why we're going to keep those out, and we are going to be doing those with the gloss at the very end. So you see, we're going through. We've got these beautiful lowlights in, tone on tone. All right, let's go to our next section. And like I said, this is really, really quick and effective. And pricing wise, I probably wouldn't charge the same as a highlight because you are kind of getting this on really quickly. But what I would do is, if your highlight price is like $200, make this like $75 more to add. You know, it's an easy upsell on your services to kind of, you know, and the clients are going to see the work, they're going to see the beautiful result that it does. And, you know, most, like I said, most brunettes and redheads, they're probably going to need this service almost every single time they come in. So I tend to do it on, you know, with most of my single process colors when they come in. Because, like, you know, if you only do the retouch up and they've faded quite a bit, which, you know, a lot of clients do, you know, then you want to do that refresh. I think it just adds value to you, but it also gives you know, a beautiful, you know, finished result for the clients. So we're going through here still, and you see how quickly we're working. You know, these are really, really easy. You know, it's like anything I do not like to complicate. And you know, even for my blondes, like I said, if we weren't highlighting and we were only doing the single, I probably would not do this on a blonde. If you were going to do it on a blonde, I would go with a low light. You know, you can still take the big chunky sections away in picking, but isolated in a foil is probably smarter, so that you don't, you know, get the spotting on the hair. But with the blondes, I would exactly also do not pull it through the ends. You know, for me, those zebra stripes, when I see lowlights like that, drive me crazy. Like, I don't find it natural looking or pretty. So, you know, my blondes, their ends should be completely bleached out. I feel like that's modern. That's what blonde hair naturally does. So, you know, just save yourself the headache of murky ends is by doing that. So we got a lot of questions. So if you guys didn't realize in the beginning when I told you guys, we are going to be having one lucky winner who's commenting, who's going to win a bunch of this Matrix swag. We've got a jacket, we have a mug, we have a tote, and we have a hat. So keep the comments rolling in, and we're going to have one lucky winner who's actually going to win all the stuff that's valued at $118. All right, so you can see we got through the whole back section pretty fast. You know, there's like a dimension of highs and lows already going on. Whatever pieces you see that are hanging out, I'm gonna gloss those at the very end. So now we're gonna be working up the top of the head, and you know, you wanna work on her natural part. So I think that's an important thing to do as well, because you wanna kind of create this, you know, highlight, low light effect. Now, another little tip I like to do, take the little face frame out. You know, pull out a little section of her face frame. Now you kind of lever almost like a free little money piece right here. So let's take this again. And you can see what I'm doing first is like going through the mids, kind of refreshing these. And then I go through and we're gonna low light through the rest. And like I said, like I'm not pulling all the way through. Okay, question, am I using 10 volume? Yes, for the mids, I'm using Demi-Permanent Matrix Color Sync. So the formula, just again for anyone who's checking in late, we did 4NJ. It's the So Color Extra Coverage Neutrals, and the NJ is the neutral jade. The jade is the green. And I'm slicing the hair horizontally as I'm working up. Yes, that's one of the questions that just popped up. So the neutral jade is going to be a neutral green, and that is going to be you know, neutralizing any unwanted, you know, red or orange tones. And with the low light that I'm doing, I'm using 4A. So with 4A, what that's going to do is it's going to give you the same tone as the root, but you know, you don't really need the neutral when you're just trying to neutralize unwanted warmth. Because most brunettes, when they come in faded, you're going to want to neutralize their unwanted warmth. Now, like I said earlier, if this was a redhead, I would be doing, you know, it's cut out the neutral for them as well, and then just use the copper gold. So, you know, kind of keeping these like face frames out. Those are going to be, you know, gloss later with the 8A. And, you know, we're just going to go through these mids. And let's just do a couple more lowlights on this. Okay, let me see. Yep, so yes, the mids on this one is going to be 4A. So someone's asking, why are you leaving some pieces out? You know, this is the way you're going to get dimension. This is how you're going to get, you know, a beautiful, rich, dimensional brunette without, you know, necessarily needing to highlight. Because she's fading, she's already getting natural highlights. And so you're going to kind of work with that. Because for me, like, one solid, inky color is not pretty. You know, it doesn't look natural, it looks flat. I charge a lot of money in the salon, so clients are expecting, their brunettes or redheads should have a lot of colors in there. There should be swirls of variation. So those swirls of variation, the easy way to get it is by, saving what you got and glossing, down the parts that are already faded for you. And like I said, so one of those key little tricks is keep that little face framer out. Because typically this client is not going to be all red like this. It's like she's probably, typically they're coming in every 4 to 6 weeks. So there's going to be some fadage, but not usually this extreme of fadage. But with the bottle application, because you're not having to go back to the bowl, you just keep working. Work and talk, work and talk. Like that's honestly I think the secret to doing high volume clients is I think a lot of people, they stop, they keep talking. If you do that, you're gonna be here all day. But for me, it's you gotta kind of keep the head down, keep working, keep moving. So, we're working these horizontal patterns. So let me see. I'm just gonna look at some images. Parting the hair sections really made a difference in controlling the hair. Yeah, so because we did those 4 quadrants, you kind of you have a plan. You have a plan of where you're going, what you're doing, and you're gonna get your end result. So, but we're just saving a few little bits, and those little beautiful bits, they're brassy now, but we're gonna let this process the entire time. So we started the timer after we finished the root application. So you're letting this mid-shaft and low light process while the roots are on. So when everything comes off, you're going to rinse it all out. You are going to do then one more gloss, and I typically go quite a few shades lighter. If I did a 4 at the base color and the mid and low light, your gloss should not be anywhere near that, especially on those ends, because they're just going to turn inky. So I'm going to go, usually for a brunette, an 8 or a 9 is beautiful. If they're not highlighting, an 8A or an 8N is gorgeous. If they are highlighted, then maybe a 10N, a 10A. Those are beautiful at neutralizing, again, brassy tones. But for all my glosses and all my low lighting, I use a Matrix Color Sync. You do not need to be putting permanent onto, the mid shafts and the ends. There's absolutely no reason. Especially if you want the hair to be shiny and healthy and beautiful, that's what the demos are for. The permanents are for the gray coverage, and having the So-Color extra coverage, what that does is you're gonna get 100% coverage, but they've already been pre-blended for you. So it kind of takes a lot of the guesswork out for colors. Even for me, who's an experienced colorist doing hair for 20 years, the easier I can make my job, the easier I can make my assistant's job at mixing. The better and more consistent results you're gonna get. So, all right, there we go. We got it on. I think even with me teaching the class, it took me 15 minutes here. So it's a super, super fast technique. And so, like I said, we just to rehash in case you just checked in late, we did the Matrix So-Color extra coverage, and the formula I used was 4NJ. The NJ is a neutral jade, which is green based, and that's going to cancel out any unwanted red tones. And what I did with the lowlights was then I went in with 4A, so the A is ash, which is going to neutralize, again, the faded unwanted tones. And what I did is I sectioned everything off into 4 quadrants. We worked our way up in horizontal placements, and we just pretty much just weaved out large sections and then refreshed the mids, pulled in lowlights, but I didn't go all the way through. I kind of left out some of the ends. I left out a little bit of the face frame. That's going to give this brunette or redhead, some variation. And we said I wouldn't recommend this for my blondes, but this is an absolutely great, fast, effective way to refresh your brunettes, refresh your redheads, and gives you a lot of tonality, a lot of variation, which if you really look at natural dark hair, it's not one solid flat color. It's got tonality, it's got movement, and that's what's going to give it shine. That's what's going to give it, variation. And with brunettes and redheads, you're not going to necessarily even need to, highlight them and put bleach on their hair, which will also keep the hair shinier, keep it healthier. That's what's going to, keep your clients coming back. So let's see. What is your favorite natural color to do this process on? So typically, if you need the refresh on the lowlights, it's because you've had oxidation and you've had fading. On natural color, I typically wouldn't lowlight because their base color usually is fine. But for them, I would typically add highlights, add some lightness to it. Unless we kind of like went a little heavy-handed and did a little too many highlights, and then we have to add dimension back in. But typically on a natural base color, I wouldn't do it. So let me swipe that. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any interesting questions here. All right.